We launched Teams just about 2 years ago, and since then it's become the fastest growing business app in Microsoft history. The reason for that is because we were able to build Teams on the strong foundation that we have in Office 365. We are using the capabilities there, whether it be Exchange, SharePoint, OneNote, other items. Really, Teams is your viewpoint into how you can consume all those different services, and we try and make it as transparent as possible to the end user. We want to make things as simple as possible. We don't want you to have to understand what SharePoint is or how to use SharePoint. We want you to just be able to work with files and collaborate around files. And because we're built upon that foundation, that's what's allowed us to grow so quickly, and that's what's allowed us from a security and IT perspective to apply the policies and the IT controls that are necessary in order for you guys to implement the organizational policies into Teams and make sure that you can have a secure environment. Just real quick, a little bit of a foundation into Teams and some of the reasons why we made choices that we did. What we've seen is a fundamental shift in terms of the way that people want to work. I think that we're all used to using email. A number of years ago, instant messaging came in. People started using that. We've since gone through a kind of revolution in the way in which people communicate, kind of socially, and lots of people want to bring that into the workplace. Things like Twitter or Facebook or competitive platforms like Slack. People want it to be more social, conversational, sometimes less formal. There are also ways in which older technologies have been used in which people try to collaborate that often kind of hinder us from collaboration at times. For example, email. How many times have you been in an email thread that gets forked? And all of a sudden you have a thread in which you have 5 different conversations happening, and you have to go through and try and figure out which piece of that forked conversation is happening, right? How many times have you had a document that has been sent through email in which everyone now has a copy on their local desktop, and some people are working off old copies, and they make updates and they send it in, and other people have made updates to other files and you have to combine them? These are all challenges that are faced with the tools that we had before. And so we wanted to bring together a collaboration space in which people could both communicate about documents, they could co-edit on documents, and then we could keep all of that knowledge in a persistent manner that would help us to understand the context behind documents and decisions and conversations that we had. We also know that as people are entering the workforce, and this is apparent to you guys being a higher education institution, is that the students that are in school today, the people who are entering the workforce are digital natives. They've always grown up having a computer. They've always grown up having a cell phone. They've always grown up having connections, right? And so they like to communicate in different ways in which you or I may have preferred to communicate in the past. So we wanted to bring all the different ways in which people communicate into a single tool. So within Teams, we have the ability of doing collaboration and communication. Communication takes different forms, which includes chat in an open space in terms of collaboration. It includes private chats that we might want to have that maybe not be tied to a project or a work stream. It could be just as simple as, hey, who's going to lunch today? What do you guys want to have? We also have people who love to, we want to be able to have meetings so that we can bring people together. We can have a fully collaborative environment, desktop sharing, audio, video, bringing in external resources. You're not always working with people just from Washington University. We want to have the ability of bringing in vendors or guests or business partners. We also want to make sure that we can collaborate. We want to address those problems of the documents that are sent around that people are working off the older version or people are making edits that have to be combined. And we want to make sure that we can have the contextual conversations around those documents. So we want to create a collaboration space that you can tailor and that you can bring all the things that are pertinent to that project or pertinent to that work stream of a project together in a single space that makes it easier to find and it makes it easier to have a contextual conversation. And you don't have to mentally shift between I'm working on one project to another project. We also wanted to make sure that we could customize and extend. And so we have the concept of a store within Microsoft Teams that allows you to go out to some of those other third-party providers and bring those experiences into Teams. An example would be if you had a project that you were trying to put together and you had already been using a tool like Trello or Asana for your task management, you can bring that into Teams by loading the app from the store. These are other third-party products that may be offering you free services, maybe charging you for their services, but it allows you to bring them deeply integrated into Teams, and I'll show you an example of that. And then the last piece is to make sure that you can work with confidence. This is built for scale. This is built for cloud. We are bringing the Skype for Business capabilities into Teams. I think that as we go through this, if you haven't already been using Teams, you'll start to see how we've been able to improve the overall experience of the messaging environment, of the meetings environment, because we're able to build Teams from the ground up with scale and the learnings that we had from running an online service and a consumer service. This also allows us to make sure that we're using the investments of Office 365 for disaster recovery, for document retention, for ensuring that you have the confidence that your conversations and your meetings are gonna run without issues.